everyone. Welcome. So glad you could join us tonight. I'm Jenny, your host for the evening. We're going to have our wonderful co-host with us, Kaz. Kaz will be making some posts in the chat while I'm presenting. We have quite a bit of information to get through tonight, so we're going to get started. And thank you for putting your notes in the chat, saying hello to each other. One of the wonderful things about these meetings is y'all kind of connect and go, hey, I'm in the same state. I'm not far from you. So feel free to connect with each other and share your contact information. We love a vibrant dialogue to happen in our chat when we're having our meetings. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to let a few more people in. Looks like we're getting a late start with some of those people signing up with us. Kaz will be taking over on that for that. All righty. I'm glad you got into the Zoom room. We have had such an amazing response ever since Kamala became the nominee. We've had the most amazing turnout. This is actually one of the events where we're not sweating it that everybody will make it into the Zoom. We have a capacity of 300 and we've been averaging around between 8 and 1,000 people attending our live stream and joining us in our Zoom room. So Kaz, I'm going to hand over the entry to you and get started on the presentation. All righty. So welcome to our session, Grassroots Organizing for Change. Folks, this is one of my favorite topics. This is how I got inspired. This is where I got my start. We're going to be talking a bit about kind of forming your own grassroots organization. Really, we keep it very simple. We ourselves are kind of self-trained grassroots organizers, and we understand the importance of really kind of being sure that we're keeping it approachable for a lot of people to have that access to learn and to understand and to take action. So thank you again for taking the time tonight to join us. Okay, there we go. My name, like I said before, I'm Jenny Okamoto, and then Kaz has joined us this evening. We'll be moderating the chat and the Facebook Live for us tonight. All right. So a little bit about me, your host. My background actually in my career is nonprofit management and leadership development. So I joined basically in 2016 after my heart was broken in the 2016 election. And luckily, a few years later, I was inspired by a candidate by the name of Mayor Pete. So I am here in Indiana. So I formed Indiana for Pete as a grassroots organizer, someone not interested in politics, did nothing in politics, but was inspired that we needed to take some action. So had a great time, met some lifelong friends, got to travel to Iowa, South Carolina. I'll tell you folks, I know we're close to an election, but literally I started my grassroots organization in October, and I was traveling to Iowa in November and then January for the Pete campaign. So it can happen very quickly. After Pete dropped out and Biden became the presumptive nominee, transferred that grassroots organizing structure to Indiana for Biden and then Indiana for Harris. And I currently work in fundraising. I am a fundraiser for a nonprofit social services organization. So yes. So thank you again, and welcome fellow grassroots organizers. So just a little bit, we're from all over the United States, some of us from out of the country. Let us know where you're from. We love to hear how broad and wide our reach is here with Building Bridges. And then, of course, just go down to that chat. Feel free to engage. We'd love to hear about it. A few friendly norms while you're with us tonight. We're going to keep you muted. Helps kind of keep the whole presentation going. We will at the end have a Q&A, and we will try to get you unmuted so you can ask your question. What I always like to say is park your questions in the chat so you can really focus on the information as we're presenting it, and we can circle back to those. And then our goal is to have our meeting be an hour with a little Q&A at the end. So I'll have to get through these slides for you. I got a lot of good information for you. So a little bit about Building Bridges. With this presentation, I tend to go a little more into this because we are an example of a grassroots organization. So I want to kind of show you a little bit of how we function. You're sitting in a grassroots organization that was formed 5 years ago. And this is one of the things that we do as an organization is provide these training sessions. Like I mentioned, I knew nothing about political organizing. when I got inspired to take action, and know that there's a lot of you out there that want to take action, have a passion for a candidate or a cause, and want those tools that are needed. So we all organized for Pete and then transferred over to Building Bridges for America. We've now broadened our group to include people that have been inspired by other candidates and campaigns, and we're still at it 5 years later. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what is grassroots organizing when you hear this term, and why is grassroots organizing so powerful. And of course, we're going to go through a lot of keys to a successful grassroots organization, how to build yours, and then actually some of the events and actions you can take as a grassroots organization. So Building Bridges for America, like I mentioned, has been around for 5 years. I'd like to invite you to the Building Bridges for America website. That'll talk a lot about what our story is, how to take action. We also have all of our training on demand there. So there's recordings of all of our sessions. We actively record our sessions and update those. So if you've missed one or the schedule isn't right for you, also we invite you to share this with other people. We are volunteers, so we just create an open source with the materials, and we invite you to forward and share your so you find something of interest with us or an event and invite them in. You'll also see a calendar of events, so you'll get an opportunity to sign up there. So buildingbridgesforamerica.com. So a little bit more digging into as a grassroots organization, where we really started, and our foundation came from establishing our mission and our values and our vision, right? So our mission is understanding, the servant leadership, that we want to mobilize and empower those networks of relational grassroots organizers. We know the power of it. We've seen it in action. And then those values of basically any level of effort adds value, regardless of the result. A lot of times it's the process. It's the people that you may not win an election with, but you've impacted in some way and planted those seeds of democracy is a good thing. Democrats are here to support you. Those are really long-term foundational building things. And we also believe in the beauty of our broad and inclusive coalition. That's what makes us so exciting, a family of Democrats and progressives, because we are so different and have different opinions to bring to that. Having started with the Pete Buttigieg campaign, we still follow what were called Pete's rules of the road. We think it's kind of ironic because after the campaign, he became transportation secretary. So rules of the road. And we'll talk a little bit about creating these tenets, these values that your organization can kind of lean back into when you need to kind of get back into alignment. And then, of course, that vision, the importance of having that educated and informed electorate where everyone is valued and belongs. So as an organization yourself, you may take the time in the beginning to sit down and kind of establish what your mission and values and vision are. It's really helpful because a lot of organizations will see what we call mission drift. So you'll start to drift away from what your original mission is. So it's really great to kind of have these foundational touchstones of like, hey, what are we really here for? What are we really good at? And to kind of revisit those. Okay, there we go. Whoops. Going backwards, not forwards. There we go. So like I mentioned, we do have a catalog of courses. This is one aspect of what Building Bridges does, is our leadership department with all of our sessions and resources and workbooks and things like that. We invite you to check out the website and to really see what kind of actions as a grassroots organization you could do. All right, so let's talk. What is grassroots organizing? We hear a lot of things, but we really need to get back to the basics to kind of understand that. So I'd love you to type in the chat some of the grassroots organizations that you know, that you've run into. When you think of a grassroots organization, tell us a little bit about maybe your experience with that. And then Kaz will read them out for me. Oh, I'm seeing the Trevor Project.
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any others? March for Our Lives, Wild Ones. So that's a good one. Regina, this is also on Facebook. We got some coming in. Wild Ones, I'm part of that one too. And Indivisible, that's a good one.
Yes.
ACLU.
Oh yeah. Awesome. So what I'm hearing here, I'm hearing actually what's really great to hear is these grassroots organizations that I remember back 5, 6, 8 years ago were kind of small. And now we're looking at these organizations and they're established. They've brought in their scope. They're in every state. They're doing an amazing work that they're doing. So here's some examples of ones that I like to pull up. One, for example, from the 2020 election, Field Team 6, I've seen is just grow and grow. Then we've got organizations like Fair Fight with Stacey Abrams that helped establish such great grassroots reach in the state of Georgia, which we would not have the change that we've seen there. Swing Left is a fantastic organization. I recommend as a grassroots organization that you, if you can fit it into your schedule, attend their sessions and become a registered grassroots organization with them. That's going to give you a lot more reach. So Swing Left has great resources and tools. A grassroots organization could be really small. Like we had an organization called Barnstormers, which supported the Pete Buttigieg campaign. And they just did a ton of visibility events and had a lot of fun and traveled to locations where Pete was at and had a great time. But really, there's a diversity to grassroots organization, which is part of the magic and success that we see. So when you're talking about actions that grassroots organization could take, what are some of the actions you could see a grassroots organization taking? Or have you kind of interacted with one in the past? Yeah, pre-debate party. That's how I got started. I started hosting debate parties at home. Yeah, I wanted to have one. I missed having one for the Kamala Harris debate. Pride events. Yes, yes, exactly. And recruiting. Yes, those are some of the actions we're going to see. Voter registration. Yes, fundraising, canvassing. Love it. Exactly.
We
And these
also have out on Facebook a good mention of adding to that social media presence, boosting that social media out.
Yes, yes, exactly. So, grassroots organizations can do so many things, and that's what's so wonderful and about them is you can be creative and kind of come up with great ideas of things that you can do. So they can raise awareness, like, for instance, supporting civil rights. They can inform voters on issues, including environmental issues or voter registration. They can inform constituents on legislation, right? What's happening that's impacting your everyday lives. Support refugees in a community, getting them housing or furnishing housing or getting them sponsors or whatever they need. Supporting candidates. We're all very familiar with that on a federal, state, and local level. Protecting trans kids, advocating for them at your state house and supporting their parents, and supporting public education. So there's so many different variety of things that we can do as a grassroots organization. But our primary goal is we're changing something. We're creating change on a local level using that local power. And that's really where that power is. So when I look at this, grassroots movement is one that uses the people in a given district, right, for that political and economic movement. We can use that collective action and we can affect that change. So that's really what we're doing. We're seeing something that we want to change. We want to fix something. We want to make something better. So yes, all righty. And then so when we talk about grassroots organizing, we are kind of used to having it be surrounded by like engaging with campaign. I'd love to hear how many of you have campaign experience. If some of you are like me, you had zero and were somewhat intimidated by the campaign process. A lot of grassroots organizers I've met have felt frustration with interacting with like their local Democratic club or their state party or not hearing back or not feeling they want to be put to work. So eventually, for me, my motto was I have no choice. Something has to happen. So I couldn't wait for someone to send me a walk list or send me literature. I actually thought this is too important and we had to make sure that something happened. Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. So I love this. And one thing that I was never familiar with were kids that were raised up in political families. I am just amazed at the stories that I could hear from people that talked about their parents and being Democrats and all that. And I just thought, what a beautiful kind of way to, with this higher purpose of like growing up in a political family. And there's so many people out there like myself that never really thought that politics really impacted your everyday lives. So yes. All right. Excellent. So one of the reasons I bring up this question is that level of intimidation, right? We want, as a grassroots organizer, to work alongside campaigns. We don't need to be directed by campaigns. I love people like myself that they had no doubt something had to be done. So they kind of had that vision of like, I'm not really going to take no for an answer. I cannot see this person get reelected. I cannot have that feeling that I had in 2016. I have no choice but to do something. So, grassroots organizing, we can support these campaigns, and we really want to position our organization in the best way so we're ready to actively engage and lift and build out that foundation. So a lot of what we're doing is we're organization building. We're building a solid organization with leadership, with guidelines, with understanding, with structure that can be activated and kind of, hit play and go when it comes to having a rally come to your town, visibility events, voter registration. So I always like to go back to this quote. I'm so glad that I found this because we need to grant ourselves the authority to solve that problem. We can't go, oh, somebody else may get to it, or I'm going to call a person and they'll call me back. I, I just, 2016 was a problem that had to be solved for me. I really had no choice. So really, I always like to use permission granted. So you are going to feel that there's gatekeeping along the way, that certain people aren't going to respond quickly or at all. And I want you to really understand that the work that you're doing is important and valuable, no matter those moments when you think, well, maybe it isn't. I want you to kind of support yourself with people that are going to remind you to, why we're here and why is it important. So for me, it's that taking that anxiety and that action turns into activism. So you have something that you are feeling anxiety about, that you're not happy with, that you're concerned about, whether it's the welfare of your trans children, whether it's the safety of your kids at school, whether it's democracy is the issue for you, and you add that action, that anxiety, that action, and then you're an activist, you're grassroots organizing. So what is the magic of grassroots organizing? Why does it work? So I've got some good reasons why it works. I love the fact that grassroots art organizing is so agile. You can turn around within 24 hours and you can activate a group of people to show up for a visibility event at the State House. We saw a lot of this when Roe v. Wade was overturned. Within days, we were at state houses with the signs. So you have this ability, since you are just a group of people, that you could just activate on a dime, right? You can harness that local power. You are the people of the community. So you're able to harness that power of the people, your neighbors, your people that you go to school with, that you work with, that are in your local Democratic clubs. You have that ability, whereas some campaigns are working more on a state level, county level, that kind of thing. So we're really creating that call to action. You're building a very valuable resource for campaigns, that volunteer base, right? Whether you're teaching people how to phone bank or directing them to a phone bank, whether you're showing people how to look on their app if they're doing literature drops or door knocking, you're able to kind of build that base. You have a database. The first thing a campaign is going to ask you is, do you have a list of people? Do you have an email list? Do you have, you're capturing that data, because data is gold in a campaign. So in any of that information that you can kind of have organized in a way that you can funnel it up. So for instance, here with Mobilize, all of you are now in the building bridges kind of sphere, and we're able to level that up to the DNC or level that up and let you know, hey, there's something happening that would be of importance. So we're creating this base of volunteers that we can harness. So it's really harnessing those personal networks and the relationships, right? We heard this term all through since 2016, all through the 2020 cycle, relational organizing. Well, what is that? And that's really a lot of the power that grassroots organizers have. So when I mentioned before, we talk a lot about campaigns. They're encumbered. They have processes they have to work. They're like a company. They're like a business. They've got a top-down structure. They need to do things in a certain way. They have compliance. There's things they can and cannot do. There's things they can and cannot say or spend their money on. Whereas grassroots, we're not as formal. We are more dynamic. So we can kind of meet each other in the middle and complement each other. We can get resources from the campaign, and then the campaign can use this as kind of the army on the ground that can has us shift. A lot of the work that I did with Indiana for Pete was independent. I was really harnessing the power of people in their talents of where they wanted to put their passion for the campaign and creating this groundswell of support and action. And it was really complementing some of the things that the campaign was doing. And I was able to use some of their resources to complement the grassroots organization. So I always like to say we're a great kind of puzzle that we put together. In campaigning, there's a limited amount of what they call time, talent, and treasure. So we have a limited amount of time, right? We've got a certain number of days until the election. We've got the talent. Who can we get to work on our campaigns? Those really great, talented campaign people, and that treasure. How much fundraising can we make? And those are things that are finite. They have a limited amount of access to. Whereas with volunteers, we can get as many volunteers, right? We can talk to as many people as those volunteers can talk to, and we can go to as many visibility events. So we really kind of work together with the campaigns to kind of create this great puzzle. We complement each other and support each other. So when we go back to where the power relational organizing comes in, what is so magical about that? Well, it really is just building on those existing relationships. So as a grassroots organizer, you live in the same community as the people that you're looking to connect with. So you can have those formal relationships. You could be working within your local Democratic club. You could be talking to people that are, very interested in specifically what you are working on. And then there's the informal, the bumping into a neighbor, the wearing a button and somebody noticing, the walking your dog kind of thing. So it's where people feel comfortable, so they're more comfortable to engage, and they have this relationship with you because you are a community member, living, a neighbor, that kind of thing. So when we talk about who is a grassroots organizer, you've given yourself this permission, you have this desire to solve this problem, to put something to work, to get a candidate in office. Who can be that? Well, in my opinion, everyone can be there. There's no magic ingredient. There's no pre-qualification to be a grassroots organizer. Everyone can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So what's required? Really just having that passion that I can't take no for an answer. This thing has to be resolved. Kamala Harris has to be the next president, things like that, right? Having that passion for a cause or a candidate. And the curiosity, how am I going to solve this problem? What tools are available out there for me? Having that curiosity to seek out, to sit here in a session with Building Bridges with two people you've never met before and another, 86 of us and some on live stream, having that innate curiosity of like, well, I want to do this thing. How do I do it? Let me go look it out. And then having that desire to help others share their skills. This was a lot of what I learned becoming a grassroots organizer. One of the big value adds. So when I go to on a job interview, I actually talk about this because it taught me how to be a really good manager, because really what I was doing was letting people bring their talent and passion to light. I said, you want to have a sign campaign and you're excited to do that? Let's make that happen. You want to teach people how to write op-eds? You want to run a training series? That was really what was really magical about grassroots organizing, is really helping others and seeing them work on something maybe they didn't have a lot of training in, but they were excited to do. And then being organized, because that really does help. So, keeping those lists, keeping track of people, being able to host events, whether it's virtual or in person, having some organizational skills. And then support. I cannot stress enough. I started out organizing Pete for America from my dining room table, and it was a very lonely place at times. But very quickly, I saw the benefit and was able to surround myself with a support system. And that's going to be really, really important, because grassroots organizing takes a lot. A lot of us are doing it when we have other jobs, we have families, we might have other things pulling us in multiple directions. And having that support, people to take some of the responsibility, some of the tasks, and also when you're feeling like disgruntled, or there's a lot of passion behind what we do, having a support system where people you can lean in and talk to And you will be so amazed how once you're with the people, a lot of people that have the same passion about a topic have a lot in common. And you'll find that you're almost like very much the same people because you share a lot of the same values about what's important. And that ability to connect people and resources. So you really are organizing that. What you're doing is you're saying, I have a resource here. This suits what Kaz is trying to do, whether it's connecting them with a phone bank, connecting them with, door knocking opportunities, or, connecting them with a fundraiser that's coming up. Just ability to go, oh, that matches this person. I'm going to reach out and invite them to that or share that information with them. So let's talk about kind of building your grassroots organization, that step by step. And I like to really break it down. So we're going to start out with defining what your grassroots organization is, building your team, what that structure of your organization is going to look like, that mission, value, vision that we had talked about earlier. And then how do you communicate what work your grassroots organization is doing and connect with the people and build that organization. And then we're going to talk about something that I love, branding, which is really building that brand for your organization. So defining it. We really have to know, and this is really what we would sit down is, what is our focus and reach? What is the thing that we're going to solve, right? What do we want to accomplish? And what's really great is you can go, what makes us special and unique? And for us at Building Bridges, for our leadership department, is we were all self-trained, self-educated grassroots organizers. We realize the unique thing is we're much like a lot of people out there who are trying to learn to take action. And that made us very unique, coming from the Peak campaign, those things. So we were able to kind of really articulate where our passions were, what made us special. And that focus and reach can really be, am I the Indianapolis organization? Am I the Illinois Street organization? Am I statewide? Am I national? Right. So really looking about, is it geographic? Is it, a particular coalition, whether it's parents of trans children, really a way to find that is, what is your why? What is that story? What brought you to this? So I might talk about, I had 2 children at the time that were figuring out who they were. And I wanted them to have that freedom and liberty to make those decisions for themselves. They both ended up being trans. I happen to live in a state that is not very trans friendly. And I was really, really frightened for them. So that was really my story. And from that story can really come out what makes your group unique. And all of inviting people to share their story can really help you get down to the crux of what that passion is and what specifically you have to offer. Asking, what do you want to fix? I always like to say, is it just you want a stop sign in a certain place that there wasn't one? Do you want to fix democracy? Do you want to, restore reproductive rights? So it can be on a smaller scale or all the way to a broad spectrum of things. And then what does your group have to offer that's different? It could be a particular skill set, right, that they can offer. It could be, editors for Harris who can edit content that can go out. It can be very, very unique. We see a lot of coalitions out there, typically based upon your demographic breakdown, whether what your race is, and that kind of thing. But you can really have groups that could be, we have Swifties for Harris, we have pagans for Harris, we have white dudes for Harris, right? Have a little fun with it too. And then what's really neat is that intersectionality. White dudes, Democrats, put them together, right? Swifties, Democrats, put them together, right? So you're creating these very unique things. So really look at what's real special about what you have to offer. And then another thing is it long-term or short-term? I don't know if we, when we built Building Bridges, really thought it would be 5 years later. Our goal was to build something to keep everyone together until Pete ran again. That's how we started. Now it's 5 years later, and it's kind of evolved into, really supporting and helping grassroots organizers, helping people talk to people about politics, supporting candidates. So it's evolved a little bit, but really looking, are you short term? Are you going to just run up to November and then you're done? Or are you looking to establish something that could last, 10 or 15 years? I'm in a red state in Indiana. We're not going to have a short term grassroots organization to turn Indiana blue, right? We've got some foundation building. It's going to take a while. I'm sure Stacy with Fair Fight, for Georgia to go blue, it took about 10 years. So that kind of thing. So deciding whether you're long or short term. And then we're going to go build. So when we talk about building, it's building your team, right? It's the people power of grassroots organizing. So what I did for Pete was I set up a weekly event. I created a touchstone. This is where Kaz can invite people to go. Meg could invite people to go. Michelle has a friend who's interested in Pete and learning more. So I created some kind of formal structure. Initially, believe it or not, it was a call. And then it turned into a Zoom. And COVID has made things a lot easier to kind of organize these. And it could be virtual. We've done Pete ups where we physically have met at locations and people have shown up and brought friends with them. Those are a gas now. And then what you're doing is you're giving updates and sharing information. Is kind of informal. The person running the meeting, it's more formal because you're going to have a structure to it. But for people, it's a casual way of kind of getting together. And then phone banking. So I got lists from the Pete campaign. They're like, hey, we've got people that want to volunteer. Would you want to call them? And I was able to take that list and turn it into a core volunteers for the campaign. If people have a membership list, anything like that you can get resources on. It could be, hey, Kaz, call 3 people, those 3 people call 3 people, and that kind of thing. And then you could expand it to, in-person parties. House parties are a great way to do it because you can get people together and say, hey, we're going to get together and talk about, the upcoming campaign. Set some goals for yourself. Want to keep it on track. Hey, Kaz, can you make sure you bring a couple people to the next event? You want to be building this out until you get to, a stronger team. What I was able to do from that was I built what I call the steering committee, which is basically kind of the committee that oversees the operations and that kind of thing. And from that, we were able to kind of establish subcommittees. Now, what I like to point out is, we might have had interest in special events, but we didn't end up really having a ton of special events, but we got really good at training. And that's where we went really deep and were able to provide a lot of support. And a lot of that came from the leadership and interest of the people that joined and were activated into action. So I had someone that was really good at training and development. I had someone that was really good at communication. So it almost becomes based upon the skill sets that are brought in by the people that you're bringing, really can define what that organization would look like, and where the strengths lie for that organization. And then structure. So we talk about structure, meaning what kind of leadership is there? So for building bridges, we had our steering committee, and that became the decision maker of the organization. So if we wanted to endorse candidates or change some of the actions that we took, we had a collective group of people that could kind of meet once a week and say, yeah, we're going to go forward with that. No, that doesn't quite work, or I'll take ownership of it. So just a core group of people there. And then how will you divide those actions? The things that you need to do as an organization, who's going to run the events, who's going to interact with campaigns or collect literature or things like that. And then decisions to be made, social media platforms you're going to use, event hosting. Kaz built us a gorgeous website, made a decision on what our platforms were going to be, maybe what candidates you're going to support collectively. And then having these like periodic planning meetings. So you're going to have your weekly meetings, you're going to have your steering meetings, you're going to have your general information meetings somehow. But then we would have just a planning. What was that vision that we saw for the next 6 months and the 6 months kind of thing? Not really a day-to-day operations, more of a visioning kind of thing. And then, how are we going to communicate with each other? What tools are we going to use? And I've got some great input on tools to use. So when we talk mission, values, and vision, this is really sitting down with those group of people that you've been able to kind of recruit your steering committee, not just yourself, but hopefully 1 or 2, 5 or 6 more people would be great. And establishing what you see your organization as being. And that's like evaluating your strengths and saying, this is what we have to offer. What's important to us? What are the things that we're here for? And what are those things that are the non-negotiables, right? And then that consistency. What's really nice with having your mission, value, and vision is that becomes the cornerstone of your organization. So whenever you feel that mission drift, or you're like, hey, this doesn't quite seem like what we came here to do, that's your foundation to touchstone and come back to. So when I talked about Pete's Rules of the Road, this was really awesome because when we would go out to the public, we were like, hey, did you know about the rules of the road? And this was a time when people were not being kind to each other in politics, but it's that time now too. And people were very impressed that we had established these kinds of value system of saying the expectation, if we're going to represent Pete Buttigieg, if we're going to interact on behalf of his campaign, this is the expectation. And it really laid those ground rules. And at a time where Facebook would go off the rails, or some Twitter posts would go off the rails, or even people on your own team, they're there with a passion, get upset about things. We could just really go, but is that really following our rules of the road? So it really helped have those touchstones, those foundational. Kaz talks a lot about when you're communicating with people about connecting on values, and we were able to find these shared values that we all had. I personally would ask people, and I do this on interviews with my team, here's our mission statement. What values out of this really resonate with you? And it was really interesting because at times you might need to resonate with one more than others. Being bold, right? Having the discipline to continue along the path, being joyful, right? Remembering that we're here. And what was really neat was Pete's rules of the road, Joe turned them into Joe's rules. And he really adapted some of those. And it's just a great way of gently kind of realigning and pushing things back to the center when things might get off the rails. Many times we'd be in those Pete chats and somebody was kind of going negative, and we go, hey, rules of the road. And they'd be like, all right, you got me. It was a very soft way of like reminding us why we were here and that we were representing someone and to be respectful. When we would talk with voters, they were like, holy, that's great. I haven't seen this in a politics so divisive. You're expected to engage this way. And we're like, yeah, we're planting these seeds of respect and belonging. That's our job and our mission to do. So I really invite you, when you're talking about your mission and values, is adapting, maybe not 10, but maybe a couple. I find you'll hear organizations are really leaning into these. And it really is a great way of finding that connection via the value system. So there we go. We've got our rules of the road along with our mission, values, and vision. So you are invited to go to the website, look at how we've set things up, and if, to share, to be inspired, that kind of thing. One of the things we also did in our strategic planning was we came up with the idea of lenses. So for a period of time, we might look through our programming through a particular lens. So we might look through that lens of belonging and democratic reform. We might pick a book around racial equity. We might do more sessions training on rural urban connection, that kind of thing. So we kind of developed these lenses that we would then filter that mission and values through, that we would kind of be our focus and lean into. And then, of course, the fun part. How are you going to communicate all this awesome work that you're doing? How are you going to talk to people to have them join your organization, or just talk to the general public? What are tools or channels are you going to use to have conversations and connect and share information among yourselves? So what's really, really, cool is a lot of these tools that I'm going to talk to you about, they're free, but they're also the same tools that campaigns use. So you'll be able to say, oh yeah, just invite me to your Slack channel or that kind of thing. So it's really cool that you can kind of engage with these. So Slack is great. It's been a lifesaver for our organization. Some of you that have made calls maybe during the election have said, an organizer said, well, I'll invite you to the Slack channel and just check in there and you'll get your phone banking information. Let us know when you're ready to start phone banking. And they would just have moderators sitting in these Slack messaging boards, basically, just a fancy messaging board that are kind of organized. And they would just be in there helping volunteers who were coming and going for text campaigns and all that kind of thing. It was a great platform to kind of store information where everybody could access it. So it's a great communication tool. You can create channels within there, so they're public or private. You could have, it's just basically a highly organized message board system, and you just get an email invitation to join. Now, what you can do is you can set up a Slack environment for your organization, and then you can organize within that. You can even share documents, all that kind of thing. And it's free and it's great. So I The campaigns are still going strong with it. So here's a little snapshot of what kind of inside our Slack channel looks. As you see, we kind of have these threads. We have book club and days of action, and graphics are there people can go to. And if I'm invited there, I can go in there and grab things, post things in these different channels, and we can share information that way. So that's your Slack. And it's very user-friendly and easy to use. When we talk about communicating events, say you're having a Zoom like this, or you're having your weekly meeting, or you're doing your steering committee, Mobilize has grown leaps and bounds since 2020. I'm just is so impressed with how they've refined it and worked on these tools. This is the event platform where you found us. This is the event platform system that Democrats are using, and it's created by Democrats for them. And the DNC. Many of you got invitations about with the Building Bridges programming through the DNC. So you can, and then also we have our own Building Bridges account. So they've gotten a little more restrictive about building, like getting your own account as they've grown. We're more grandfathered in because we've been around for a while. So you may not be able to create your own account, but you can always like create events under another account. So you can literally go into the DNC account, which has this huge reach, right? Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, and you can create events there. You'll have an opportunity. There might be some limited access. They're just trying to protect it from kind of things being on there that shouldn't be on there. What's really great is from there, you have now, if people sign up for your events, you can access an email to send them updates about your event. Like we sent you the links for today. You can send them information to promote an event coming up. They're going to get push notifications. So you're going to get a lot of things going, Building Bridges is at an event, or DNC is sharing this other event with you. So, but you'll be able, you're in the sphere and you're going to get that. So really, really, really great program. And then here's a little bit of kind of what our landing page looked like at one time for Building Bridges. We had different events kind of happening and that kind of thing. And then, of course, Zoom, which I don't think they do a free account anymore, sadly. I think you really need to pay like the base rate, which gets you like limited access. But that's the way to go. It's been great. People don't have travel times. They can hop in, hop out. We've got AI in here right now taking notes for us. Zoom has they've evolved into this great platform. And then also, you can also save the chat in your meetings. A lot of people don't know this, but if you go into the chat box and hit those three little dots, it's going to say save meeting. And it's going to save all the wonderful contact information and links and things like that that people have shared in that chat. And then, of course, you can record them. So we record our events and we post them on our website. We can refresh them. We're also using Facebook Lives now. So that is automatically saved. So then people can share those, or if they've missed us, or a lot of people were emailing us that they were going to support other candidates down ballot. Hey, we don't want you to miss out on that. You can watch us anytime. Go to that event, support, that down ballot candidate. And then some more tools. Some of you saw my steering committee whiteboard there, Miro. That's a great whiteboard. It's basically like sticking Post-it notes on there. So you can move them around. It's a great kind of brainstorming visualization tool. Great for when you're kind of meeting with your steering committee and kind of sussing out some plans and ideas. We got our Gmail account. So we have our Google account, our Gmail account. That's where we host all of our presentations. That's where our email is, all kinds of great things. Don't sleep on Nextdoor. You can create subgroups in Nextdoor, which is kind of a neighborhood app. So it's chunked out by geographic, by neighborhood. One thing I will tell you is don't create a political public post. Like you don't want to go into Nextdoor and say, hey, Joe Biden was a great, this and that, or say anything political. Then it will get deleted. People will get upset. You can create your own invitation only group. So I have a Vote Blue for Indiana group that was, Joe for Indiana, and now it's Vote Blue for Indiana. And people ask to be invited, and that's where we can have our conversations about politics. And then, of course, you've got your Twitter. We'll talk a little bit about your social media platforms. We use Wix for our web hosting, free. And then, of course, Facebook. You can't really deny it. It's really been our friend because as we hit capacity with the great turnout for our events, Facebook's been a great backup, and it really has really helped us make sure we get people in those rooms. So here's a little landing page for my Indiana from Joe from 2020 for next door. So let's talk a little bit about social media, because we all know we need to be there, but what's the best way and how should we do that? So really what you're looking for with social media is you're having that broad spectrum. You're talking about a topic, you're engaging people, you're informing them if things are happening. But there's a lot of opportunity in Facebook, really funneling down and getting people from one, maybe listening about it, watching something, seeing a meme, to actually taking action. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So, that engage and inform, that awareness. Then we're having the persuasive conversations. We used to have something called digital door knocking, where we were literally knocking on Facebook posts going, well, how come you feel that way? Or can I get you some more information about that? We had a team of them through the Pete campaign and then the Joe campaign, that's our jobs, was just to comb through social media and inspire and engage people that were interested, and then growing that supporter base. They were capturing them, right? You can get people. We had people. We had Nasty Women for Indiana, 55,000 people in the state of Indiana, our red state, organizing on Facebook. That was our platform for organizing. And then, of course, getting people to take action, to getting those voters to the polls. So where should you post? You've got limited time, right? Time, talent, treasure. Where are you going to spend your energy? Well, I'm going to tell you, in my book, it's Facebook. So 70% of people get their news, they're daily on Facebook. They're having those conversations there. I'm not a big fan of it. I know a lot of people have reasons why they want to avoid Facebook, but that is the platform right now. If out of anything that you might have a potentially persuasive conversation, but being able to share a resource about an event or a rally or things like that, it's really going to be Facebook. Twitter is very siloed. So when you're dealing with Twitter, you're pretty much talking to people that are like you, and you're pretty much throwing out a thought and just leaving it there. It's for people that really like to make a statement and then walk away kind of thing. So you're not going to have that much engagement. And then Instagram, it tends to be for the younger group. So Instagram is going to be a great tool. We're seeing a lot going on with TikTok, which is a lot more. People aren't super comfortable making videos, things like that. But with a particular Gen Z generation, it's a great tool. And, checking out kind of what candidates are doing on there, they're getting really creative. So what's important is when you're doing social media posts is value. It's not just, I'm upset about this, or I saw this horrible picture, or things like that. I invite you to check out Kaz's session on Pop the Disinformation Bubble, because we don't want to be magnifying negative things. We don't want to be magnifying the things that hurt us. We really want to be using this as a responsible tool, because we can have a very high impact. So are you providing value with your post? Is it reliable? Are you creating a Facebook page that's safe? Is it really a great place for opportunities to take action? Are you kind of pushing people from talking about it to actually doing something about it? So you can provide resources like messaging to share. You can be listing volunteer opportunities, meeting information that's coming up. And you want to become that hub, that trusted resource for people when they want to know about a candidate, a cause, or something, and become reliable, not just kind of like a junkie. And that can happen. That's where those mission and values, and having those the rules kind of come back to, is be like, this is not the goal of our, Facebook page. We want to remember we're here for this reason, kind of thing. So things can go a little sideways there. So we want to have an opportunity to kind of level set. You always want to be activating your members. Is your page motivating them to take action, to turn out, to vote, to talk to other things like that, inspiring them to kind of take that action, and having that authentic voice of what it is, keeping focused on the primary issues, being positive and constructive, having pretty regular posts going on there, kind of not letting it go stale. Best thing you can do is reshare content on your Facebook page. You don't have to be working hard and creating it. You're basically becoming the trusted hub. So I might, funnel, mobilize events through there. They've got great graphics. They've got great action items to do. I might funnel farmers markets that are coming up. Let's show up and do a visibility event, things like that. And then following up, we want to really make sure that we've activated like, hey, this was something we did as a group and it was fun and successful. You can come to the next one. So putting those posts, hashtagging, getting people to put it, how did it go? What successes did you have? And here's my favorite, branding. So what really, if you take the time to kind of establish a brand for your grassroots organization, it's going to look more professional, right? We all have that recognition of looking at a logo, branding colors, the same colors, things like that. It's not that hard to do. You don't have to hire people. It's not that fancy. It's got incredibly easy to do. When you see our slides, they kind of look alike. When you see our logo, it looks alike. When you see our website, there's a continuity there that creates kind of that, polished package. Well, it's not magic and it's not hard, and anyone who can really do it. So here's a few tools that you can use. But when I talked about Canva's great, free, you've got access. What's great is it can build the graphics for you. That's another one that's grown leaps and bounds. You can basically just take packaged branding packages and just insert your name, and it will look wonderful. Here's some of the examples I did even 5 years ago. It's a great program and it's free. So I recommend that. Here's some more that we were doing for some of our events. As you can see, there's a consistency there. We're kind of using the same typeface. We're using the same logos. A lot of the color scheme is the same. There's that consistency. What you want to look put together, right? You want to show up like you kind of got your act together. And that's a great way when you're interacting with the campaigns, they can see that you've created and taken time to kind of create this like brand and image. So branding to me is very important. It creates that consistency. You look really professional. And what's really nice with Canva is you can just like leave your graphics there. You're not like emailing files or anything, and multiple people can have access to the same account. So Kaz could have created something. I can go in and edit it and I can use it. So it's very, very easy to use. And then the more you pay, kind of the more you get kind of thing. So I do recommend that. Here's a little bit of what our brand package looks like on Canva. What's really cool is once we uploaded the logo, it pulled the colors from it and created our color. It's just so easy and it's just, not complicated at all. And there's a little bit of what our landing page looks like. All of our projects are hosted there. So we're going to run through some of the actions you can take now that you've got your group together, you got your mission and values focused, you have some branding, you're ready to go to kind of take that action. So really the way you approach any action that you're doing as a grassroots organization is what we call the ladder of engagement. You want to take someone from being curious about what you're doing or watching what you're doing to maybe be running the organization eventually someday. So it's just like with any volunteer, you want to get them started and up where they're comfortable so we can kind of build up that strength with them. So when we host events, they can do many things at one time, which is really great. We can inspire people to take action, whether it's to volunteer, to donate, to participate, to vote, things like that, right? We can inspire them to build a community. We're getting connections there. And then we're informing people and educating them at these. And then we have that visibility into the general public so people can get to know our candidate or our cause by name kind of thing. Some of those activities could include something as simple as tabling, which is really plunking down a table and providing information. Resource sharing is a great way to kind of build rapport with people. You're not selling them on anything. You're just saying, hey, do you know how to check your voter registration? Do you know this is happening kind of thing? Signature collection. We're luckily at the stage now where we're not putting people on the ballot, but there are minimum requirements of signatures. And that is a lot of work and a lot of money for campaigns. If we did it for Pete, we collected the signatures. He didn't have to spend any money in the state of Indiana on that. Phone banking, getting on the phone, postcarding, canvassing, which is that door knocking, and coordinated campaigns, which is where we're all going to kind of come together as a group. And down ballots are going to work with up ballots, and we're all going to kind of use our resources together. We just recently participated in yet another what we call Signs Across America, where we had Hoosiers for Harris in the state of Indiana. We had all these different signs. It literally was a virtual almost like a chain gang or whatever the word is, a bucket brigade across the state of across the country and across every state. So how do we start with our events? How about a name? What are we going to be doing? Where are we going to go? That's a great way to start. Graphics are always fun to create for that. Keep in mind, you can divvy these responsibilities out. You might have somebody that loves to play around with graphics and someone who has a bunch of people to call, that kind of thing. So you really want to check these out. You want to have your anticipated attendance that you need. Maybe you need to double or triple that depending on people showing or not showing. How are we going to promote the event? What kind of materials do we need to have there? Handouts, giveaways, signs that we need. And then what's that ask? What are we going to ask people when we're at that event? What's our goal of connecting with people there? And that, inspiring that action, right? What are we looking to do? So some of the event types, we can have some semi-private. We could have those house parties that are so fantastic. We could invite a candidate to a house party to raise some money, or just, they can talk directly to people in the community. Neighborhood events are fantastic, whether it's like a kind of block party-ish or a local park event. Fundraising is always welcome. And then we have the more public, where you're showing up in a public space. You might be walking in a parade as the Democrats or supporting a candidate. You might be going to festivals. Oktoberfest are coming around. We're seeing lots of fall festivities that are great opportunities. We might be hosting workshops where we can invite the general public to learn. We did a lot of these with Pete, training on how, about the campaign. And then team events. You could participate in days of action, whether it's with your local United Way or your Keep whatever beautiful. You're out there in the community, maybe you're helping at a food pantry, but you are representing a candidate that's in the community supporting, so that it's great visibility. We also have some resources on our site. We have some resources on how to phone bank, on how to canvass. There's a great recording on actually having conversations. You can share that with your people and say, hey, watch this video. Julie's going to talk to this voter at the door, and realize that it's not that hard and it's not that scary. And then, of course, the audience. So is it going to be a public audience? Is it a private audience? How are we going to reach that audience? How are we going to do our invitations? That kind of thing. And then calendaring it, right? So we want to make sure that we establish for our organization, look at the whole year, look at the campaign cycle, fill it out early, making sure that you're connecting to like maybe observation days or holidays or parades or specific events kind of thing. Filling in any kind of gaps you see, like, oh, we don't have anything for a few weeks there. Maybe we should fill it in with something. It does take time to plan and promote if we're going to do it right. We don't want to say your event's not a success if we didn't plan it properly. Maybe that was the problem. They just didn't have time to get the word out, kind of thing. And then you want to do these things early. These farmers markets, those kinds of things, they fill up, very, very quickly. We have a great resource, which is kind of like a little checklist for events. All of this is on the website under our resources page, and you can download it, share it, whatever you'd like to do. And it's a great way of kind of making sure that you kind of covered some of the bases there. And some more information. And then what's really great is while you're having the event, assign people to make social media posts. You would be shocked how people love to make them. If you provide them with a hashtag or a poster or a frame or something, people love to do social media posts, and sending out that event summary to people. Oh, these people showed up. Telling a story of people you talked to, having that debrief, saying what was successful, what would we do next time, that kind of thing. And then measuring success. How do you measure that success? Is it the number of attendees? I was saying to Kaz, hey, we're not going to have 1,000 people tonight. And she goes, well, we might have the right 13 people, right? It's not a matter of numbers. It's a matter of the right people. You've made those connections. Is it $1 a sign? Is it that maybe you've planted the seed and now you just need to go back a few more times to connect? Basically, you're developing, that you're spreading that enthusiasm you have, you're building out the relationships, and you're leading, to more events. Somebody's like, oh, I went to this house party, I want one from my own, that kind of thing. So there's always those opportunities, right? More. So there's a lot of resources available for you there, to just kind of grab. Keep in mind, I should have said at the beginning, these slides, this presentation is all on the website. So you'll have access to get to it. Just go into our training section. And then I also love and have participated in this session with the Democrats. It's the Best Practices Institute. And as a grassroots organizer, it was great for me. It's kind of a multi-week session that meets once a week. It's presentations, handouts, some really, really, really great resources are in there. So go to democrats.org for that.